right, so I will share that YouTube for you guys. For whatever reason, they're not letting it go because it is copyrighted. You're often allowed to use stuff for educational purposes only. So I put that disclaimer up. We'll see where it goes. But finishing up, I know we're going to have a few folks that will give their presentation today, this week and next week. And they'll be posted up into the discussion board area. So if you guys are able to see, oh, that's right. Okay, so these videos are already inside of your class under the videos for discussions. And for research citations. So that one is the immigration one. It's labeled immigration. It's about how women have to oftentimes prostitute themselves on the border of Mexico and Chiapas. And unfortunately, sometimes get stuck there because, you know, they were brought up by a coyote and have no way out. So if you want to finish the end of it, you would go into the videos, click on the immigration one, and that is the area that is copyrighted, so crossing Mexico's other border. And the other piece was for the final in here, number one is finishing all the papers. So when you have all the papers complete, there's about 5. I also graded the discussion boards up to the last paper you had complete. And then we're going to have a self-assessment exam, a self-assessment paper for the final, and that will be due on December 5th. That's something that I wanted to introduce you guys to and let you know that we will be doing, starting it as soon as, I'm going to try to get it up a little before Thanksgiving so you have time to work on it and get you guys moving, because we're actually almost to the end here, being on chapter 12 and going over social work with disabilities such as cerebral palsy, autism, and other organic disorders, and some of the issues with that, the emotional responses, the lack of services from social workers, and then allowing them self-determination. There is some stats towards the end here about social work and mental health. So about 26% of the US population 18 years and older are affected by mental disorders, and about 6% of adults experience one or more categories of serious mental illness. And that's where it was helpful when the Affordable Care Act was expanded. Some of the issues are conflicting theories, underlying organic causes. We also have given stigmatizing labels. So as social workers, we try to, address that. And then the deficit focus. Instead of doing like a positive focus on things, which they tell us to do in our assessments at, say, for example, Lighthouse Youth Services and whatnot, they kind of focus on the deficit. Our response is inpatient and outpatient services. We have an interdisciplinary team approach, and then community-based service delivery. Sometimes home visits, because people have trouble getting transportation and getting into the agency that you would see them at. So a lot of funding has gone towards mileage and doing home visits. So the social worker can get to the house. One of the last columns is social work and chemical dependency. This is a huge one, especially with our opioid crisis. So 22.6 million people in the US report illicit drug use or alcohol use issues. If you saw on the ballot this week, Oregon passed a lot of harder drugs that are no longer illegal, like psychedelic mushrooms and even possibly some opiates. But what this can lead to if there is addiction problems is role difficulties at work, school, or home, and also psychological dependence on the drug itself. So a lot of places will do drug testing and mandatory treatment. So in social work, when I worked at Claremont Recovery Center, our response there was personal and family counseling. We focused more specifically on adolescents about 13 to 17 that were in trouble with the courts and tried to help them live clean and sober lives and to get off probation. So worked with their probation officers, showed that they were being clean, and then have them graduate to the recovery center. Also having family counseling, so we would meet with the families, check in every week, and do family group counseling. Sometimes, like especially on the prevention efforts for kids that were younger than 13, we had referrals for education, health, and legal services. We also would work with at-risk groups, teens, and older adults, women and ethnic minorities. So lots of folks are affected by drug and alcohol rehabilitation. There is a few movies that I did want to show about the Cincinnati opioid crisis. Not sure, again, if I cite fair use that we're using this for educational purpose only. This is a documentary that they had made. And I do believe it was on the Facebook, which was interesting. So there definitely was a lot of videos put out and funding that went towards the overdose problem. So the 7 days of heroin that was in Cincinnati was kind of a big deal, as it went through a lot of people that were struggling with the opiates. So I will put up a link to that. And get you guys.
Taxpayers will spend heavily to lock up drug users. People will overdose in gas stations and parks and school parking lots.
So this is Cincinnati.
It's the first day of another week of the heroin epidemic. Over the next 7 days in greater Cincinnati, at least 180 people will overdose. 18 will die. This is normal now. This is a typical week. Here's Cobra May in Hamilton County. It's the first stop for those arrested the night before on heroin charges.
So the defendant didn't know they had in his possession a clear liquid syringe, which he admitted was heroin.
On this morning, as on most, 1 in 4 cases on the docket is directly connected to heroin. They come from wealthy neighborhoods and poor.
She had syringes in her vagina that she did not disclose.
They are young and old, parents and grandparents, sons and daughters. Sometimes they are brought here hours after they almost died from an overdose. Sometimes they don't make it to court. Heroin and other opiates kill 1 American every 16 minutes. That's more than die in traffic crashes.
Cincinnati 911, what is the address of your emergency? 4980 Glenway Ave in Cookdale Library. My children's librarian is asking for Narcan. She thinks that he may be overdosing. Hello?
Hello, Cincinnati 911.
Yeah,
nobody even answered his phone, and I believe the OD, and I think he's dead.
Okay, can you tell me for sure if he has a pulse or a heartbeat?
He's ice fucking cold.
I got a phone call. She was all upset for. I couldn't understand her, and I said, "I think she's telling me my baby's dead." No, it's not real. No, I don't know. It feels like your soul leaves your body. It felt like somebody just blasted me in the chest with a shotgun. That's what it really felt like. I guess they see it so much, they just look at it like, well, there's another dumbass, whatever. That Corey said, I deal with this every day. And they come, well, we deal with this every day. I said, yeah, well, I don't deal with this every day. I don't got to deal with it every day very much. Every day my child's dead. I don't deal with that every day. How would you feel if you loved your child was dead? They didn't understand, so I didn't believe it. I said, nah, it ain't time. He hadn't been using, he's been clean for a year. He said, Mom, look, I promise you, Mommy, I will never do heroin again. He said, Mom, that stuff they got every day. He said, it's not heroin. He said, it's a test we made to kill him. So what happened to me? I want to do a shot of heroin again.
By the end of the night, at least 20 people in Greater Cincinnati have overdosed. 4 have died. In the early morning, Covington police raid a house for drugs and guns. It's a constant battle to keep up as demand for heroin rises. Heroin is big business, and cartels from Mexico want to cash in. They flood markets like Greater Cincinnati with drugs and rely on street dealers to find customers. Police go after those dealers, but if one goes down, another is always ready to step in.
There's an overdose right here by the church. You see a needle man? Yeah. Jeans. That's what it is now, that you know, somebody laid in the outlet. This is what it is now.
Heroin isn't just a big city problem. Small towns across Ohio and Kentucky have been devastated by the drug.
You know, when we started this ministry, we were so excited about just being able to do what God wants us to do. We didn't realize the magnitude of what we faced with.
Dale Breeden created Firehouse Ministries to do something about it. His church welcomes all, including anyone seeking help with addiction.
And when I hear him talk, it's like it's a demon. It's got, you know, that is something inside of them that's really evil that's forcing them to do what they're doing. And a lot of these kids, you know, are faced with that same choice, and maybe sooner than later with the way things are. The kids that we help and that we minister to, there's not one of those kids that are not affected by the addiction problem. And heroin seems to be the greatest controlling factor. Somebody in their family is directly connected with the drug culture, and these kids are faced with that. And I've also seen some families where not only the parents are using, but they're using with their kids. And that is a really risky place for all of them to be. And I know for a lot of their lives, that just seems like a normal thing that, you know, my parent is used and my siblings are used, and it's an atmosphere that just creates a whole lot more trouble for them when they think that kind of lifestyle is normal.
Father, we just want to thank you for the blessings that you give us. We want to thank you for this day, and Father, for these kids that come out. And I just pray that you protect them and keep them safe. Draw them close to you and let them experience your love and your mercy. In Jesus' name. Amen.
By the end of the day, at least 38 people have overdosed for the week. 6 have died. As heroin addiction progresses, people can lose careers, family support, even their homes. Some end up here, under the city's interstates.
I started to hit the homeless camps pretty regularly. There was a lot of alcoholics and mentally ill individuals that weren't being medicated properly. Now it's mostly heroin.
It's Officer Tim Epstein's job to clear out these homeless camps, but he also tries to help.
These people are in a tough spot with their lives. Nobody really recognizes their rock bottom until it's pointed out to them. The goal isn't to take them to jail. The goal is to connect them to services. But sometimes I'll have to take people to jail each time you get evicted and have to change something, it's an opportunity to make the decision to make the big change, to actually get off the heroin or the other drugs that you're on.
Kim Hill is preparing to see the son she lost Monday to a heroin overdose. Tom had been drug-free for about a year before relapsing. His friends found him in his apartment, a needle in his arm.
Just to see your child looking like that and that had been doing good so long. I remember just laying on his chest saying, why did you do this? Why? Why did you do this? Tom, no. And I just, they won't even kiss it even. I didn't want to let him go, and I didn't care. I just wanted to bring him home.
Crime labs like this one in Cold Spring are scrambling to keep up with demand. Evidence in every drug case ends up in a place like this, where it's tested, measured, analyzed.
No, they're really into it. This might not be enough for them for the day.
Heroin isn't the only problem. Synthetic opiates such as fentanyl and carfentanil are increasingly common and increasingly deadly. Just a few crumbs are enough to kill. The idyllic suburb of Fort Thomas has had its share of heroin problems, and the highways bring even more people with addiction through. Police created the heroin interdiction team after the drug was blamed for several deadly crashes in northern Kentucky. Drug driving is more common now than drunken driving. The right help can be hard to find for those addicted to heroin. Treatment centers fill up quickly, and programs that work for some addictions don't work well for heroin. The Campbell County Jail has a new approach. Women here get evidence-based treatment. They get medication when they leave jail. But that's not where it ends. For 2 years, they get health checks, job training, housing assistance. Tara Jarvis deliberately got arrested so she could get treatment.
I completely shut down from everything, from my sisters, from my brother. Determined. I want this money and work on my life.
What is the address of your emergency?
Yeah, I'm in the section out of school, but it's like emergency. I think you overdosed. I don't know what you took.
I can remember waking up from being revived, and it was just literally like a fog, a dozen people standing around me. I had no idea who was who, and it was terrifying because it's almost like you're laying in a casket.
It took Amy Parker years to learn how to live without heroin. She relapsed more times than she can remember and alienated family and friends.
As long as a person is still alive, there is hope that they can get through this.
But she did it. She got treatment, including medicine. Now she's a peer counselor, helping people who are where she used to be, walking the line between sobriety and relapse.
I'm in a dream. Is it real? And when I look around my beautiful home in a safe neighborhood with my husband and my kids, it's amazing.
By the end of the day, at least 63 people have overdosed for the week. 9 have died.
Well, we're at 9 Mile and 52.
Claremont County Sheriff's deputies are targeting heroin users on US 52. Pill mills along this route used to give drug users easy access to prescription painkillers. Now, those drug users come looking for heroin.
since the heroin problem. It's just been the area that we've really had to target, and it just doesn't seem to be going well.
If you were at a beach, you put your fingers down, say, pinch some sand, and that's literally the amount of heroin that typically a user would purchase.
They'll shove that stuff down in their sock. They'll put it in a real small balloon, shove it in their cheek, bottom of their shoe, underneath the pad of the foot.
You know, it's true of finding a needle in a haystack.
And also for expensive for LBI, get your
When deputies pull over this 23-year-old man, they find drug paraphernalia in the car. The man admits he uses heroin. He says he believes he's safe because he snorts heroin rather than injecting.
I just think that's a lot safer than sticking a needle in my arm.
So you're not doing it every day?
Yeah, sometimes yes.
Sometimes, yes.
That makes sense, but other times no.
When babies are born to mothers addicted to heroin, they can suffer tremors, seizures, and other withdrawal symptoms. Children's Hospital treats those babies and works with parents to keep them healthy.
Still need a little bit of holding on. You're getting there. There you go. Turn you on your belly and see what you can do. Eliana, her name means gift from God.
Stephanie Gaffney says she used heroin for years until she learned she was pregnant with Eliana. She lives with her baby at a Cincinnati treatment center.
She gives me something a little bit more worth fighting for. I had a rough and complicated childhood. I don't want her to have to go through any of that I did. I want her to have her parents be consistent in her life. She looks excellent. You started out so little and you're so big now. Yes, you are. I don't know how possible it is, but I would like to have as normal a family as addicts can have.
10 days after this visit, Stephanie Gaffney overdosed and died. Eliana is now living with Stephanie's parents.
No one wakes up one day and says, this is what I want to do. We don't see them as what most people would see them as, which is prostitutes.
Scarlett Hudson calls them her girls, and these women call her mama.
Yeah, so she'll be on the street tonight.
Through her Women of Alabaster Ministries, they can drop in for a meal, clothing, or health checks.
We look at them like they have been broken, they're hurt. We don't believe at all that it's a choice that they would make had they had a good choice to make. This is one way that they know that they can feed that addiction. They've resorted to this. We see them through the eyes of Christ. That's how we see them. So we thank you for the days when the girls say that they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, Lord.
Hey, baby, are you hungry? Oh, you want to go with me? I'm going up to the building.
So are you? We know that if we keep doing what we've been called to do, that more and more of them will find their way out, and more of them will live.
There's going to come a day when it's going to be your day and you're going to come in and say, I'm ready, right?
Yeah. They have aspirations and have had aspirations. We just got to find that person again. So when we look at them for what they can be one day, not what they are at the moment.
I'm currently at Burger King on Glenway, and there's somebody passed out in the women's bathroom.
Are they sure this is a drug? Ma'am, they're passed out. They will face down. Yes, the needle is right by her.
Most companies won't hire someone who's struggling with heroin addiction. Warsaw, Kentucky's largest employer, Dorman Products, takes a different approach.
You guys need to be aware. Put you on. What's your name? I'll be clean.
I've been struggling with heroin for about 7 years.
Workers meet weekly on company time to talk about their struggles or the struggles of family members.
I've been kids both my sons are addicts, and they have put me through hell, and then some. So, a lot of people just want to look at you and say, there's nothing you can do, just, give it to God and forget about it. Well, that sounds good, but it doesn't work that way. Especially when it's your kid. Most of the time, it's an escape. You're hunting for the cards and you only have a lot of time to think. That's the hardest part, is putting your game face on and trying to pretend like you're okay. In here, don't have to do that. A lot of the guys that weren't here will come up to me on the floor and ask me, how are your boys doing? Have you heard from Josh yet? And that means a lot, because a lot of people don't get it. While I shopped with one of the cashiers, she was talking about heroin addicts one day, and she made a very nasty reference, and I was like, I want to stop you right there. I have 2 sons, they're both heroin addicts. You're entitled to your opinion, but I cannot sit here and listen to you say nasty things that they all should die and all of that. I pray that you're never in my situation, because only then are you going to understand it. And I don't want you to learn that way. Every single addict out there is somebody's child.
By the end of the night, at least 123 people have overdosed for the week. 13 have died.
Has ever woman overdosed in our public restrooms?
Overdoses happen everywhere. This one is in the restroom at Finley Market. Someone finds a 35-year-old woman in a blue tank top and yoga pants sprawled on the floor. A syringe loaded with heroin is at her side. The life-saving drug Narcan reverses the effects of heroin. A worker at the market has it in her purse and uses it to revive the woman. Usually it's the police or paramedics who have to administer Narcan. This man passed out while sitting on a bench at Hyatt Park. A bike cop spotted him and called for paramedics. Now, the cop is shooting naloxone into the man's nostrils.
There you go. You can hear me once you squeeze my hand. This is not big. Narcan always doesn't work for a long time in the other half.
When paramedics show up, they insert an IV and give him another naloxone dose.
Just relax, buddy.
This time, the man rouses.
It's okay, buddy.
Relax, you're good, okay? Just stay still.
When he comes to, the medics tell him he should go to a hospital, or at least sit and drink some water. Instead, a friend helps him to his feet, and they walk away. By the end of the day, at least 123 people have overdosed for the week. 13 have died.
I think you got codeine on heroin. I think the guy's dead.
There are moments where a family driving southbound on I-75 near the Weston Hills Viaduct. That's where Cincinnati police arrest a man for OBI on heroin after a crash.
Heroin users cause crashes all the time. Sometimes they shut down a major interstate. When this driver and passenger overdosed while headed south on I-75, paramedics saved their lives. Police charged the driver with driving while on heroin. More people died from overdoses in Butler County this week than in any other greater Cincinnati county.
Oh, Sheriff Jones has got to go.
Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones won't let his deputies carry Narcan.
I'm a very compassionate person. I see more than they do. I cry a lot inside.
Jones is the only sheriff in Southwest Ohio whose department doesn't use it. His decision sparked a protest from those who say saving lives is what matters most, and a counter-protest from those who say heroin users shouldn't get free treatment, even to save their lives.
Kids are born in my jail. 3 babies born in 18 months. Born addicted. 12 pregnant ladies in my jail have 35 babies. One of them has 7. They don't have any of them. Children's Services has it. Narcan isn't the issue. The issue is the people that are dying and are doing these drugs, and our politicians and our government does nothing. But I'm not apologizing for my stance, not even this much, and nor will
Brianna and Jackson are so freaking happy. They are the happiest kids. I don't understand how they can be so happy. I guess that's part of being a kid, right? You're always really happy.
Maureen Sheriff's front yard is a playground for her grandchildren. Brianna is 9 and Jackson is 4. Their mom, Natalie Power, overdosed and died in January. Maureen is raising Brianna and her sister is raising Jackson. They consider themselves lucky to be able to care for the children. Kids of heroin users often end up in foster homes.
It is scary, raising a child without the parent. We don't know what to do.
We have to almost smother them with love so that they understand that they're part of a family.
They do understand that it was an accident.
That she didn't leave them on purpose.
People say it'll get better. It doesn't go away. It doesn't get better. I want Natalie back. There's nothing more in this world that I want. If I can't have her.
10 minutes, Jackson. I'm gonna read a book, all right?
Last night she was crying. I want mommy. I feel like my life is over. What does that mean when a 9-year-old says, I feel like my life is over? Brianna was saying last night, why did this have to happen to me? This is so unfair. I said, you're right, it is unfair. I don't know why this had to happen to you. They have to be so brave. If it took her life to bring theirs, then that's what her destiny was. Her life was worthwhile.
By the end of the night, at least 154 people have overdosed for the week. 13 have died.
It's never good. They drive and running outside to get us. And her name's Gracie. Yes, she's not breathing hard. Her name's Gracie. That's all I know. But my friend has 2 shots in our hand. They're about to give her now. We gotta get her on the floor. Come on, guys. She's dead. She's purple.
Gracie, wake up, Gracie. Gracie, Gracie.
Either she got a new dealer, the new dealer has her, or she's been off for a while, and jumped back into the game.
Gracie. Gracie. There we go. Gracie, watch yourself. Watch yourself. You gotta have you in your arm, okay?
Crazy, you overdose. We're gonna watch your step, big step here.
Let somebody get you some heroin while you're sleeping. That's here there for us, okay?
If the heroin epidemic is a battle, as many in law enforcement now see it, local jails are the overwhelmed field hospitals, mass units where the casualties just keep coming.
The city's seen a big spike in heroin opioids. From what I understand is they've had more heroin-related opioids than have alcohol-related opioids. And they're easier to convict too, because most of the time they catch them either with a needle in their arm or they give them Narcan to bring them back. And the only thing the Narcan works on is opiates, so you can't really hide that.
I dedicate every day to the rush of getting high. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. It's a train, I guess, my train system's really hard now. So I've been going OT and dead about 7 or 8 separate times at the time, so, I probably have 20 odd ODs, I should by all accounts probably be dead.
More than 200 inmates at the Hamilton County Justice Center are admitted heroin users. Jail officials believe the actual number is much larger. Heroin users typically don't stay here long. They get patched up and booked, but the jail is crowded. If they've committed no other crime, they are often released within days or hours. Many return again and again.
Thank you for stressing me out. But it's, you know, it's 6 hours out, it wasn't just that you to be there.
Lizzie Hamlin's son, Scotty, has been missing for days. His friend, Tom Tom, died from a heroin overdose Monday.
It's an empty room.
Scotty disappeared after that. His mom is sure he's using again. Lizzie came home from work just minutes ago and could tell that he had returned to the apartment. He left with some of his things. She suspects he will sell them and use the money to buy heroin.
This is my room. I keep it locked. I keep my personal things in there. When Scotty's using, he tends to take things, leather jackets, brand new pants, trade them and get money and get high. We hit our up and downs, but we had a lot of good times. Respondent has track marks. He has been making up to 5 trips a day to purchase. He's going to Cincinnati 5 times a day for drugs and sometimes cannot make it through the night without using, and he couldn't. Approximately 3 weeks ago, respondent was admitted to St. Edward Hospital voluntarily and reported feeling hopeless, helpless, and felt suicide. The results in a 3-day stay was unable to stay sober longer than 6 days before relapsing.
Lizzie is going to Tom Tom's funeral tomorrow to support his mom, Kim Hill. But she'll also be thinking of her own son.
See, Kim's going through the process of where she's having to plan this funeral. Me, I imagine in my mind, what would I put Scotty in? What kind of shirt would he want? What kind of hat would he want? What shoes? I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of it. If I could lock him to a bed with the chain, then I would. Scott, he just texted me back and said, love you too.
By the end of the week, at least 180 people have overdosed. 18 have died. This is normal now. This is a typical week.
We're here to pay our respects to Tom Tom. He had a big heart and he was all about family. Tom Tom was here today. He could say anything he wanted to us. He would say to those of you that are using heroin, please don't let this death be in vain.
Yeah, we are. I'm good.
Alright, so if you guys have any questions about the observation paper and the discussion board, just keeping up on the papers and the discussion boards. You will be fine if you complete all your work. I'm keeping them open for people that got kind of thrown back because of coronavirus. So that being said, I'll see y'all next week. See you on Monday. And have a safe weekend. Be well and don't watch too much of the election.